Home City Bank pays 5% interest, compounded quarterly, on regular savings accounts. Miguel Cardoza deposited $1,000 for 1 year and made no other deposits or withdrawals. How much interest did he earn by the end of the year? Okay, so we have to use this table to help us figure out how much interest he earned. Remember that compound interest is going to be equal to our amount, so however much you end up with, minus your initial investment or your original principal. So this is like saying I started out with $10 in my account. Later I had $30 in my account. How much money did I gain? And the amount of money that you gained is your compound interest. So to figure out my problem, it'd be easy to say, okay, you started with 10, you ended with $30, so you gained $20. You had $20 in compound interest. And we automatically make this subtraction without really thinking about it. So let's put it into practice here. Now, to find amount, we're going to take $1,000, which is the amount of the initial deposit, and we're going to multiply it by a figure from the table. This figure is telling us a number, a factor to multiply by to figure out compound interest. So they have it scaled down to $1, so it's kind of like giving us a ratio as if our investment was only $1. It gives us a multiplier. So using amount of $1, we mimic the same total number of interest periods and the interest rate per period to take a multiplier from the table. So in this case, our interest rate per period is 5%, or 5% compounded quarterly. Okay, so if we have 5% compounded quarterly, it's compounded 4 times a year. If I have an interest rate of 5% APR compounded quarterly, it's compounded 4 times per year. So I take my 5% and I divide by 4 to find the interest rate per period. So my interest rate per period, 5% divided by 4, it's going to be 1.25%. 1.25%. Now, how many interest periods are there? Well, if it's compounded quarterly for 1 year, it would be 4 interest periods, right? So for 1 year compounded quarterly, we've got 4 interest periods. And now we just read the table for 4 interest periods and for an interest rate of 1.25%, and we find where they overlap. So you'll notice that they overlap at this cell, 1.05094. So we take that number and we plug it into this equation. Amount equals 1,000 times 1.05094. So again, this is our multiplier. So, continuing, that means that our compound interest equals amount, which is 1,000 times 1.05094, minus original principal, which is 1,000. This comes out to 1,000 times 1.05094 is $1,050.94 minus $1,000. So our compound interest equals $50.94. Let's practice one more time with reading that table. So in this example, it says to prepare for their child's education, John and Cindy started an account with a deposit of $6,000. The money earns 5% interest compounded quarterly. Considering no other deposits or withdrawals are made, how much will the account be worth in 2 years? Okay, so a couple of things we have to figure out. We know that what we're aiming for is this compound interest formula. So compound interest equals amount minus original principal. Now we know the original principal, they tell us right off, is $6,000. But now we need to find the amount. By amount, they mean take the original principal and multiply it by the number from the table. So I'm going to call that like table number. You call that a table number or the amount of $1 found in the table. So to solve for amount, again, we're going to take our original principal of $6,000 and I'm going to multiply it by some number from the table. Now to figure out this table number, I need to know the total number of interest periods and I need to know the interest rate per period in order to read this table. So how many interest periods are there going to be? Well, we're told that we have interest compounding quarterly for 2 years. So that means it's compounding 4 times a year for 2 years. So we have 8 periods. So we're going to use some number from this row. Now we have to figure out the column. So our column, interest rate per period. So if the money earns 5% interest compounded quarterly, then the rate per period is going to be that 5% divided by 4, which is 1.25%. Again, to find rate per period, I took the annual rate and divided it by the number of times it's compounded annually, 1.25%. So I'm going to use this 1.25% column. Now I look where they overlap, and it's pretty easy to see that they overlap at 1.10448. So I'm going to plug that in, 1.10448. Okay, I carry out my multiplication. I find that my amount equals, let's see what that is, 6,626.88. So, summing it all up, my compound interest equals 6,626.88 minus my original principal of 6,000. So my final answer is $626. And, oh, actually, I just reread it. It says, how much will the account be worth in 2 years? So that's my final answer. The account will be worth $6,626.88. So, don't be like me. Be sure to reread so you don't make simple mistakes like that. So always consider whether they're asking you for the interest or the total value of the account.